Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is O-Sheena. I am happy to share all of the books that I read in December with you. So there are quite a few Christmas books on this list, but I did read some non-Christmas books. So I'm going to show all of the non-Christmas books first and then the Christmas books. So if you're done with Christmas, you don't need to see any more reviews, that's fine. But I will share all of the books that I read. So here we go. So the first book that I read was Prophet by Frank E. Peretti. And this book really surprised me. I figured I would like it because I loved This Present Darkness and Piercing the Darkness that I read by him, and so I figured that his storytelling, his writing is something that I'll always like. And you would have already seen a review of it because it did end up in my favorite books of the year video, so I'll link that down below. But yeah, I had to include it because it affected me so much just because of the storyline and the way that it was told. I felt very connected to it and I cried. I also made a short reviewing this book, so I've never made a short before on YouTube. I'll link it down below if you want to see it. It's just like a 1-minute quick thoughts saying read it because it's so good. The main thing that you follow is this news station and an anchorman, and the news station covers a lot of different aspects, but there is like a election going on, so they're following the candidate that is like most popular. And at one of the rallies for this candidate, there is a man who goes there and starts speaking against the candidate and like calling him out and saying like, you need to repent, like God sees what you're doing and you're deceiving the people and things like that. So he's been labeled kind of this prophet by the media. And he happens to be the father of this anchorman at the news station. So the anchorman is like, can you please lay off, Dad? Like, you're making me look bad. And then his dad ends up dead. And looks like an accident, but might not be. And so some investigating starts happening, but a lot of people are paid off to be silent or to like fudge reports. And so that's interesting, right? You basically follow this anchorman going through trying to figure out what's up with his dad and then finding things out that his dad knew about the governor that are sketchy. And at the same time, he is being contacted by families that have had daughters die because of abortions at this one women's clinic. And so there is an abortion storyline happening, and you do find out how everything is connected as the story goes. But for a little while, it looks like, okay, there's this abortion storyline, and then he's trying to figure out what's up with his dad and the governor and whatever. And then you see how it's all connected, and I was like, wow. The only part that was like kind of sluggish is there are very large chunks of description of this news station and the commercial breaks and what the cameras are doing and all of the instructions and stuff like that. And I just was like not interested in that. So I definitely skimmed all of that, but otherwise I was eating it up. I loved it. So would highly recommend. I did already lend it to my mom, so I don't have the physical copy with me anymore. Okay, next up, I read A Castaway and Cornwall, finally. I don't know why I kept putting off reading it, whatever, but I finally read it, and sadly, this is my least favorite Julie Klassen, because it was boring to me. I found the characters boring, I found the plot boring. What I did like was, what did I like? The relationship, of course, and the romance, but there was barely any of it. It was a very slow burn, and even then, they kissed like twice, okay? And I was like, please, I want more. Like, I want more of them even together. Like, what? I actually ended up getting the audiobook for this book because I like just could not bring myself to pick it up and read it, which is so sad. But, you know, one of your favorite authors doesn't have to have an amazing book every time, but on my list of favorites, this would not make it at all. Okay, next up, I did read Sunrise by Susan May Warren. This was kind of a spur of the moment. I needed an ebook to read, and so I chose Sunrise. And it was like a very slow start, and I was like, I don't care about these characters, what's happening? And then the plot starts picking up, characters start meeting each other, and I'm like, ooh, okay, I like this. And then really, the way she wrote the Alaskan setting was so good. Like, so many books are set in Alaska. Like I guess people want to read about it but not actually go there. I don't know. But I super enjoyed reading the Alaskan setting. Like, it just was so gorgeous. It was very snowy and they were like in the mountains a lot, and there was like cabins, and I just like really liked it. And then there is like a dog aspect because dog sledding is a big thing there with one of the characters, so that was fun. So basically you're following this guy who has like a messy past with his family. He comes back because his dad gets in an accident, so he's figuring that out. He is ex-military, and he's not sure what he wants to do, but he doesn't want to stay in Alaska. And then he has an old flame who he actually asked to marry him, but she turned him down, who still lives there with her dad, and she is the dog sledding girl. And the thing that she's into with her dad is tracking these bears. I don't really remember why or how it started, but they have these like 2 bears that they have tracked, and so they just like make sure everything's okay with that. But there are like illegal poachers going around, so they're dealing with that. And basically they are thrown together because of circumstances, and it's like them talking through their relationship, and then like a lot of action to do with like dog sledding, being in the wilderness and stuff like that. I really like wilderness survival, so that was a nice aspect of this because there's a lot of it. And overall, I enjoyed it. There was a lot of good faith in this book too. There's definitely some boring parts for me in this book, but I'm definitely interested in reading the rest of the books because it's going to follow the guy's other brothers. He's got 2 other brothers, and there's like stories to do with them, so hopefully I enjoy their stories too. But I did really like this one, so I'm glad that I read it. So I did read a whole bunch of romance ebooks as well in this month, so I'm just gonna go over them and we'll yeah. Okay, first up is A Guide to Just Being Friends, and I forget the name of the author, but this was a super spontaneous, saw it on NetGalley, got approved for it, and read it. Like, isn't that nice? Like, I got approved and I started reading it. Like, is that not the dream? But it doesn't usually happen. So this is a contemporary romance. This is technically book 3 in a little companion trilogy. This was like pretty funny. So basically this girl goes into a cafe and the guy thinks that she's the blind date that he's going on. And she's like, no, I'm not. And he's like, you could just like be honest with me and say you're not interested. Like, you don't have to lie. And she's like, I'm not lying, I have no idea who you are. And so that's like pretty funny. And then she just opened up a like salad shop, and then of course they keep running into each other, and he ends up like taking an interest in her shop because she just started this new business, and he's like a super famous, well-known businessman, so he has a lot of tips for her. And they kind of agree that they want to be just friends. Like they like being around each other, but she's not interested in romance and he isn't either, I guess. He doesn't really believe in love, so whatever. So they are just friends, and that was really nice. Like, they truly just wanted to hang out. They just enjoyed each other's company and got along. And then she is like, well, I actually like this guy now, and he's like, I don't want to like you. And so like there's a little conflict there, whatever. But honestly, it was super funny. The thing is, there was a lot of language, so that was a letdown. And then they talked about the bedroom a lot, but then none of it happened, none of it was explained. Overall, wouldn't recommend it, but it was very funny. So that's going for it. But I kind of wish I could read the other 2 books because I really liked the relationships of the 2 brothers. So anyways. Okay, next I read Speak Your Truth, and I'm sure this is Marie Soleil, I think is the author. I found her on Instagram, and she just is like really sweet. I like her Instagram a lot. And so she had posted that this book was free right now on her website or something. So I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And yeah, so this is it. I mean, you could tell it was self-published. It definitely is like pretty basic, but it was a really enjoyable read and super clean, sweet romance. And basically you follow this girl who works at a like magazine place where she writes different columns about like challenges that she does. So the last challenge she did was like drinking green juice every day for 30 days or something like that, and it went viral. And so her boss is like, okay, the next thing I want you to do is like speak your truth. So you have to be honest no matter what. Like, if someone asks you your opinion, you have to give your honest opinion. If you aren't into something, you have to be honest about it. If you really like someone, you have to be honest about it. So kind of this honesty, speak your truth thing is what she has to do. And she definitely has a family that will not go over well with. Her family was the most frustrating part. I really didn't like her parents, in particular her dad, but like, yeah, her parents were so like judgmental and had high expectations, and I'm like, this sucks. Like, I've been blessed with amazing parents, and so I don't know what it's like to have a rocky relationship with a parent, but man, it was so hard to read about because I was like, raw, like it just made me so mad. Anyways, but she wanted to please them, and so she really was kind of a pushover with them. But she has a childhood best friend who is back in town, and they meet up, and she's like, oh, I've always loved him, and he's like, I still love you. But she's like, we can't be together, like my family does not approve of this. But because of the speak your truth thing, she is able to like live her own life. And anyways, it was kind of like a coming of age, break out of your shell, break free from expectations kind of story, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars. Nothing super stood out, but I definitely would read more from this author. Okay, by the same author, I read Nights Beneath the Stars. So this was also free, so I was able to read it. This is technically in the timeline of the story before Speak Your Truth, but follows a completely different couple that you do know who they are from Speak Your Truth, which was actually really satisfying. So you got to see their love story. This was a super short novella. It was like 50 ebook pages. And yeah, this follows a girl who dreams of being a singer, and she gets an Uber to this audition, and the Uber driver happens to be her childhood friend from back home. And he's like, whoa, what are the odds? And then they go to the audition together, and they have this great day together, and he's like, I believe in you. And it was like just really cute. So that was quick too. I gave that 4 stars just because like it was a really sweet novella and I enjoyed it a lot. So yeah, this author, she just like writes really sweet romance. So if you're looking for something easy and sweet, check her out. I'll link her Instagram down below if you want to see more. Okay, the next one kind of goes with another one, so I'm gonna just put them together, I guess. So I did read If I Were You by Lynn Austen and The Wishbook Christmas by Lynn Austen, but I technically read The Wishbook Christmas first, but it technically comes after If I Were You, so whatever. So If I Were You, it follows 2 women from England who grow up together, but one is from the higher upper class and one is like really low servant class. But they end up meeting and become friends, and they like stay friends kind of on and off throughout the time of this book. This is a jumping timeline book, so you see them like as grown women and mothers, but then it jumps back to show more about how they met and how they lived through the war. So this is a World War I or II. I forget. I think it's 2. Oh, it is World War II. It's World War II. Okay, yeah, because the present storyline is like 1950s-ish, and they talk about it. Okay. And I listened to this book mostly on audiobook. I have been trying to listen to more audiobooks lately just to give it a try, basically. And if not for the audiobook, I would not have enjoyed this book as much. The narrator was amazing. Like, she's my favorite thing ever. Her last name's Zimmerman. I forget the first name, Sarah maybe. I read The Wishbook Christmas, and I loved these characters. Like, I was like, I like these women. I want to know more about their life. Like, I'm really into this. And they had such sweet romance in this book. Cute kids and really Christmassy. I loved it. And like good Christmas message too. It was so good. And so I checked out If I Were You, and really my favorite part was these characters. Like, I felt so attached to them for some reason. Just the way that it was written. Lynn Austen just writes really compelling characters, and I could just see her skill and quality in this story. She's just such a good storyteller. If not for that, I would have thought it was super boring, because there were long chunks of If I Were You of the war and different bombings and stuff like that, and I was like, I don't want to read about this. This is like, I don't like it. I still only gave If I Were You 3 stars, but I gave The Wishbook Christmas 4 stars. This was such a good Christmas book. I just was like so invested. So what an interesting duology. I've only read the Chronicles of the King series by Lynn Austen, but now I'm like, ooh, I want to read more from her. I'm sure if you like historical fiction, you would love If I Were You, especially because the faith aspect was so good too. Like, really good faith in both of them. So check it out. I actually, when I reviewed The Wishbook Christmas, a lot of people were like, what? I didn't know there was a sequel to If I Were You. So yeah, there's a Christmas sequel to If I Were You. So definitely read it, because it wraps up a lot of things. Like, because If I Were You ends not that wrapped up, in my opinion. Like, I would really want a sequel if I had only just read If I Were You. So the Wishbook Christmas gives you the closure, which was so nice. And I'm glad that I read it first. I didn't really care about the spoilers. So yeah, anyway, that was interesting. It was good. Okay, more Christmas. So I did read Finding Christmas by Karen Schaler, and this book, I liked it a lot, actually. It was 4 stars, very Christmassy. Don't really love how, like, we kind of have to put down a character to make another character look good, you know? Because basically this girl's boyfriend, like, doesn't really prioritize her. He doesn't care about Christmas, and she has like all of these cute things planned. And I'm just like, girl, why do you think you're a good pair with him? Like, she ends up going on all of these like Christmassy outings that she expects her boyfriend to be at, but then another guy ends up showing up all the time, and they do the things together because it's like, well, let's not put it to waste. And they're like so much more obviously better matched, and yet the boyfriend has to like look bad to make us see that. I don't know. So, you know, I'm not giving this a great review, but I did enjoy it. I just didn't like the boyfriend aspect, I guess. Like, I wish that it was just this girl planning these fun outings for herself, and then a guy like happens to come along and do them too. I don't know. But actually this scene is in the book, so that was exciting too, this Christmas tree in the gazebo. So yeah. To be honest, probably won't read any more from this author because like it's very fluffy, not a lot of substance, and I'm good, you know? Okay, then I read A Holiday by Gaslight by Mimi Matthews. I was buddy reading this with a group of ladies, and I really enjoyed it. I did not know what to expect. A lot of us did really like it though. I ended up giving this 4 stars. So it was an enjoyable read for sure, very funny. At the very beginning, you follow these 2 characters. The girl's like, we need to break up. I'm not into you. Like, we're not good compatible, like whatever. They wanted to be matched because her family needs money. They're like, okay, like what are we gonna do then? And she's like, okay, maybe I was a little too hasty. So she goes back to talk to him and kind of make a plan. Like, let's get to know each other because like we never talk, and I thought that we weren't like good together, but maybe we just need to talk more. And so he's definitely like awkward and quiet and more broody, and she's like more bright and happy. So it's definitely like the grumpy sunshine trope. Their relationship was really sweet to read about. It was just like, yeah, there was nothing wrong with it. It was clean. There was a bit of like mild language, but to me, it wasn't really anything. I totally breezed past it. Like it didn't bother me. So anyway, I'm glad I read it. Okay, then I read 12 Days of Christmas by Debbie Macomber, and this one was interesting too. I gave it 4 stars because it was very enjoyable, but there were definitely some aspects about the relationship that was annoying. But basically, you follow these 2 neighbors in an apartment, and the guy like is super standoffish, doesn't want anything to do with the girl, but she's like, come on, dude, like we should be friends here. And she ends up writing a blog chronicling her trying to de-Grinchify this guy because he's like super anti-fun anything. And so she like does all these funny things to try to like soften him up, and it works because he's like, ooh, whatever, I kind of like this girl, and she's like, oh, I kind of like him too. But she keeps writing about the blog, and so of course when he finds out about the blog, he's like, I can't trust you, whatever. But anyway, so that was like fine. It was a good Christmas story, definitely very Christmassy. It was clean, and I don't remember any language, but yeah, I'm glad that I read it though. I would recommend it. Okay, and lastly, I did read the King Jesus Gospel by Scot, McKnight, I think, and I can't find it on my shelves. I don't know what I did with it, so picture it is. But this book, it had so much potential. I really had good vibes about it at the beginning, but I just felt kind of like it droned on, and I lost interest, and I was like, okay, I appreciate what you're trying to do here, dude, but I don't want to hear it. So, I mean, basically, he talked about how he thinks that modern evangelical Christians don't understand what the word gospel means and entails when we're talking about the word gospel, and how we kind of just equate it with salvation, and that it's much more than just a salvation story. But he seemed quite upset about it. Like the way he was writing, he just seemed very upset that we would misunderstand what gospel means. But he's saying it's a problem because it means that we have a more shallow understanding of Jesus, and it's not as motivating to have a relationship with him if we just think about it as salvation. And so I was like, okay, yes, but I don't know. I didn't feel like I needed to read it. So that's okay. I'm glad I gave it a try. All right, everyone, that is the December wrap up. That was a lot of books. I read a lot. Feels good. Yeah, so I am excited to read more in January, but I am also slowing things down, which is so nice. So I will list all of the books down below that I mentioned in this video and any videos that I mentioned as well. And I will see you guys in my next one. Bye. But I would say I liked this better than I Want to Try to Date too. Like, whatever. This is not my time. Okay, I did read a bunch of like romance, but I did read okay, I did read a whole, something her and her dad do a lot is something her, man. And there's a helicopter. Okay, we're gonna refilm all of that. Everything's fine. Gonna have a lot of bloopers. It's great. Okay. Actually, but I did make a short for this video. I can't talk. So that I was like, I feel like I need to restart. Like, this is just a mess. I can't talk.